Hi. I just finished watching Godzilla vs. Kong a couple minutes ago, and I had such a good time recording my thoughts in this manner about the Justice League of the Snyder Cut that I decided to continue try to make this sort of thing a regular thing with Godzilla vs. Kong, especially because I was looking forward to this so much more than I was looking forward to the Snyder Cut, being a longtime Godzilla fan. When I was very young, I don't remember exactly when, but I would watch just hours straight of Godzilla on like the Showa era Godzillas on AMC, and didn't really comprehend either the surface goofy stuff or the deeper meanings of Godzilla. Just liked it. I was and continue and still am a huge fan of the 1998 Godzilla, and I have appreciated the new MonsterVerse Godzilla incarnation and the King Kong. I saw the Peter Jackson King Kong when it first came out, and for a long time that was I guess I had seen the '70s version uh, previously at some point, but didn't really have much memory of it, and I'd seen bits and pieces of the 1933 version. But this past weekend, in anticipation of this, the malevolent supernatural force I live with and I watched the original King Kong, the uh, the sequel Son of Kong from a couple of years later, both of those 1930s. We watched the 1976 Kong, and then we watched Kong Skull Island, the direct prequel to this movie, Godzilla vs. Kong. Well, not direct, I guess, but as far as King Kong is concerned. And then after that, we watched the 2014 Godzilla because there was still time. And before even that, before New Year's 2021, the week leading up, we watched 13 of the 15 Showa era Godzilla movies, because two of them, including the original Godzilla vs. Kong, were not available. And we also watched, what else did we watch? The 1998 one, and the Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is actually timeline-wise, the direct prequel to this one. So these are all wildly different movies and of wildly different quality, but I have a soft spot for all of them because of Godzilla, and now Kong too. The original King Kong, especially, aside from the island natives, is, I think, very great. And I was watching it and I was thinking, Jurassic Park, The Lost World, or Lost World Jurassic Park gets a lot of heat for parody. It gets called a parody of Godzilla. It's really a parody of, if it's a parody of anything, it's a parody of King Kong, because it's bringing the it's going to the island to capture the monster and bring it for public display on the mainland. But the dinosaur looks like the Godzilla of the 90s, or the Hollywood Godzilla of the 90s, and therefore I will get around to talking to Godzilla vs. Kong. In fact, I'll do it right now. As far as how that ranks in all of the Godzilla and Kong movies that I have watched, it's pretty near the top, because most of them are not that great. They're fun to watch because they're like watching wrestling, and I don't watch wrestling, but I assume it's like watching wrestling with big elaborate costumes. It's like watching wrestling crossed with The Masked Singer, which I also don't watch. So I'm making that comparison based on commercials and what other people have said. But I think it's pretty apt. And this is pretty good as far as wrestling crossed with The Masked Singer, this movie. And certainly better than any of the predecessors in the MonsterVerse. More interesting. Godzilla seems to be on some kind of upper in this movie compared to how he behaves in the other movies. And King Kong is very, very human. And not just because he's an ape and therefore related to humans distantly. A lot of this movie is King Kong on a quest, and it's a quest that is forced on him. But aren't all the great quests forced? I mean, Frodo's quest was forced on him. So there's great use of monsters from past movies, drawing from not just the past movies of the MonsterVerse, but the classics, and a big kind of world building idea that isn't new to readers of classic science fiction, but or even more recent science. I mean, my other thing that I'm doing on the YouTube right now is rewatching Land of the Lost. There's a touch of Land of the Lost in this movie, more than a touch. But Land of the Lost itself draws on something like draws on Jules Verne, and things like that. But it all comes together so well, and there's also a lot that's dumb and it's overstuffed, like most movies of this ilk are these days. But you don't mind. I didn't mind the overstuffing this time because the meat was so good. Um, it answers criticisms of the past with the MonsterVerse movies that yes, there are big monsters and yes, they do cool things, but it's always shrouded in darkness and mist and gloom and therefore difficult to see. I had very little. The times when I had trouble seeing the monsters, I was glad that I had temporary trouble seeing the monsters for the effect later on, for what it came to. And I'm just still looking at. I got a face on the screen that's half Godzilla and half King Kong glaring at me, so I keep looking up on it to remind me what I'm talking about. Godzilla versus Kong. There are humans in it, and unlike the previous movies, MonsterVerse movies, there was still a little, but less of the trying to make you care about the humans. The most they did with that, they had a cute little girl, and she was deaf, so there was some sign language, which is always nice to see sign language in movies, especially in this movie, I will say. But it kind of knew for the first time not to overdo it with the making people care about the human characters, because we were never going to. They felt more like the human characters from the Showa-era Godzilla movies, which were there, and they served a purpose, but we weren't supposed to care too much about them. I will mention two of the actors in particular, who I thought rose above the material by seeming to understand the material better than others, and those were Brian Tyree Henry from a lot of things, like the show Atlanta for one, and he was in Joker, and Julian Dennison, who was in the Hunt for the Wilder People, among other things, but that's what and Deadpool 2, but I mostly associated him with the Hunt for the Wilder People, which is a great Taika Waititi movie. Those two, they might initially come off as just comic relief because they are hilarious, but they also, just as far as people witnessing this, I felt like they served the movie the best. Brian Tyree Henry plays a podcaster, a kind of conspiracy podcaster, but as in movies like this, the conspiracies turn out to be true to an extent, and he's just great how he's into it. And again, not too much time is given to how he manages to do what he does, which might be somewhat unbelievable in the world that the movie takes place in, as far as just getting past security. But it has to happen for the movie to happen, for the plot to be interesting, and it works. And then Julian Dennison is just hilarious, and has several great moments, and several kind of like almost breaking the fourth wall moments, but not quite breaking the fourth wall. But like he says things that just to make it absolutely clear to the audience, but you kind of know that the writers are self-aware. Like, we know that the audience knows that he's only saying this so that we can make it explicit, spell it out even though it's evident. So that was very funny. And this movie gave me a better appreciation for the past movies, parts of the past movies, especially what seems to be a particularly not dumb, but just pointless, a little bit dumb add-on of Godzilla King of the Monsters, and then I see what happens in this movie. I think, oh, that's very interesting. I like that. I like how they used that. one of the few things that I don't want to give away would be given away if I mentioned exactly what that was, or would be given away to an extent. Although it has been speculated, and I kind of saw it. Now I didn't see exactly the way they did it, linking it to the other movie coming, but I did see it coming because it had been speculated. Of the versus movies that are out there, I would say this is my favorite. Now, I haven't seen, like I mentioned, I haven't seen the original Godzilla vs. Kong because it was not available. Has not been available on streaming so far, so long as I have been streaming, to my knowledge. I would love to see it. I did find it on DVD at a secondhand store in Hudson, New York, and didn't buy it, and I have regretted it ever since. I will eventually see it. I imagine it's at least as good as this, maybe better, possibly not as good. I don't know what its reputation is. But this I really liked more than a Batman v Superman, more than an Alien versus Predator or a Freddy versus Jason. I'm not an expert in the versus movies. Those are the 4 that I can think of. And this one tops them. So I think I will leave it at that. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to seeing it again before it goes off of streaming, then eventually it'll come back to streaming. I don't know yet if it's DVD worthy. Of course, it will be released on DVD, but will it? Will I want it on DVD? That I have not decided yet. I do want the Showa era Godzillas eventually, but I think that the complete set of that is only available on Blu-ray. Eventually, I'll have to get a Blu-ray player. I did get a DVD recently, just yesterday, in fact, of Wonder Woman 1984. Maybe I'll do a video on that at some point, just because I loved it, but I wasn't confident doing this sort of video yet, and I'm still not, but I'm doing it now, which is 9/10 of the law. In the meantime, though, I do want to do this more often with newer movies, like maybe In the Heights eventually. That's in June. But, you know, exciting new movie comes out on streaming. It's one of the few pleasures of the current state of the world. So why not try and share it? So we'll see about that. But if you can, see either version of Godzilla vs. Kong, because I'm sure the other one is worth seeing for puppetry reasons, costume reasons, just seeing how this kind of movie, this kind of big spectacle was made in 1962. But if you can see the 2021 version too, it's fun and it's worth seeing. And it's got, I mentioned in a Land of the Lost thing that my weapon of choice in a fantasy world would have been Shung's glowing crystal dagger. There's a weapon in this movie that replaced that. So, and I will leave it at that. But there's a weapon in this movie that I would really, if I, in a post-apocalyptic world and I had to carry a weapon around, I would want the weapon in this movie. So I will leave it at that. Happy movie going. Enjoy Godzilla vs. Kong if you want to.